what is a right way to evaluate that whether I am holding on irrationally or just emotionally, and it is fair to call it a day, or am I just enduring the present pain and I know the gain is around the corner?
So,
how do you evaluate?
absolute right question. See, connected vehicles is giving them an opportunity to be part of the life cycle of the vehicle. The vehicle manufacturers are going to make a lot more profit by data, right, rather than selling the vehicle over a period of time.
So, and they decided to invest with no product in hand.
But the journey was not as smooth. It took 1 year from that meeting, but yes, it's kind of a mandate. You have to be frugal, otherwise you won't survive.
Now, let's move a bit from the technology to the basic entrepreneurial journey that you have had.
We were bootstrapped fundamentally. That's also a reason. And
Give me an advice, one for each. For the government, for the investors, and for the customers. Hello friends, welcome back to Revelations with Manas ji. Indian IT is a global success, is no more a news in our country. However, there's an interesting question always asked. What is the IP that we have given to the world? What is a new product or technology product that India has taken to the world? Well, that is what we are here to discover today. I have a very interesting guest with me today who have built their product which is made in India with pride. It's a product which is affecting the way the automotive sector is shaping up. It affects the way that how we are treated by the vehicles on the road. So it not only affects the business, it also affects a daily user, commuter on his day-to-day travel or time spent on the road. How do entrepreneurs coming from a small town, not from a very marquee college, build up a business which is today valued around 50 to 60 odd $1 million with a revenue around 25 to 30 crores, all within the span of last 6 to 7 years. Mind you, it's not on a seed capital. It's a completely bootstrapped startup. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Anup and Sudeep from Zeliot. So Anup, starting with you, why Zeliot, how Zeliot, why Automotive? That would help.
I mean, I get your question, right? We do look like entrepreneurs who have started right out of the college, right? It's very true for him, but it's not true for me. So I used to work for another company. Then there was a startup that I was part of for about 3 years. So there was a 4-year journey before we could start Zeliot. How Zeliot started is a very interesting story. Right? It's not a typical way a startup starts, right? How do you start a startup? I mean, if you look back, you hear a lot of these great entrepreneurs come back and say this way. I mean, I had my 2 BHK there, I had a room, So fortunately or unfortunately, Zeliot's story is not like that. I, along with Sudeep and one more of our co-founder Sugam, we were part of another early stage startup called as Cookie.
Okay.
All right. There we were working on consumer products. One of the consumer product was a Bluetooth based locking system for automobiles, right? Mainly cars. So that was into mobility. That's how our introduction to mobility is, and that's how we know a bit of this industry, right? So when we were working on that, company didn't take off well. So 3 of us were trying to do something, and we came out of that company. I mean, unfortunately, company also didn't do much well after that. When we came out, we met another company. The founder was from the city that we come from, Hubli. All right. That's how we had some mutual acquaintance. We met that person. He's pretty senior today, I guess around 54, 55, right? So when we met him, it was inspiring. I mean, he has done something there coming from the background that is very similar to ours in automotive again, right? So that's how the idea of doing something or continuing to do something in automotive came to us. When we started this company, we actually were part of this larger company as well, iTriangle. So that's how the journey began. So they had some business and we wanted to start running that business independently for ourselves. That's the very, I mean, non-interesting story. I mean, there was no one bedroom apartment, or there was no garage where we started.
I was going to say that you didn't have a garage. Huh?
yeah, the Cookie was a 2-bedroom apartment.
Cookie was a 2-bedroom
apartment.
Yeah. No, but when we started Zeliot, we got a very small office which could house about 15 people in Indranagar. That is interesting because most of the startups in the Bangalore as a city, if you see, starts from either
HSR.
Indranagar,
Yeah.
HSR or Kormangla, right? So even though we were not from that area, but coincidentally we also wanted to start from that area. So that is quite similar. But apart from that, yes, we took an office, we took some kind of a revenue from this company iTriangle. That's how the story began, right? Basic product that we had, it used to be called as Aquila Track, right? It was more of a fleet management system per se.
Sorry,
Which
if
is-
I may interrupt. You
Yeah.
know, just for the sake of audience, can you explain what is a fleet management
Yeah,
system?
I was about to do that.
Yeah.
You know.
All right. So it started with fleet management system. It used to be called as Aquila Track. So Aquila Track, what is a fleet management system? It's a basic software, all right, which kind of lets you monitor and track your vehicles,
Okay.
specifically vehicles. All right. So what does that mean? Let's say you are an Uber. What does Uber need? They want to understand where all their vehicles are, right?
True.
And they want to know whether the driver is driving the vehicle right. The third thing is they want to know if the vehicle is all right, if there is anything wrong with the vehicle. That's what we call as diagnostic part of it, right? So all of this main features put together, the system is usually called as Aquila Track or a fleet management system, right? So we used to sell this in a subscription model to other customers. That's how we began Zeliot. And for about 3-4 years, we did the same thing up until at least 2021 end, right? After 2018, that's what we did and that's how it started. Humble beginning, right? No real experience of entrepreneurship or building large scale systems in any other company previously. He was a fresher when we started this. He had just joined
Yeah.
Cookie about 6 months before.
Yeah, I think it was me and Sugam were batchmates
Okay.
and then we were classmates from engineering, and Anup was our senior in college. So it so happened that he passed out and we kind of joined college, and we knew that there's somebody called Anup and he's passed out.
So
And
he didn't drag you then?
no,
No.
because he was out of college.
But he-
By the
More
time we came in.
importantly, he is son of a teacher who used to teach me
Yeah,
in
so-
engineering,
Oh,
and
no
I
wonder you
used to
could
be
know.
So my
very
mom's in
scared
the
of her.
same
So-
college. So there's a lot of connections there, and I think with Sugam and me kind of going into college, and then we were also we just met in college and we kind of started figuring some things out. So I'm from the electronics department, so we used to do a lot of embedded stuff and so on in college. So the idea
Don't
was
remind me of those days.
yeah. So the idea was always there, that we need to tinker around, we need to do something on our own. And Anup had left college and joined Akamai, and then came back, and he was part of Cookie already by the time we were done with college. So that's when we thought we'll join Cookie, and we were there for about 6 to 8 months.
yeah,
And
we did all kinds of crazy stuff
Yeah.
in the last 6 months of Cookie. We tried to build multiple products in case of survival. Right, that's how it started. But I mean, even when we started with this fleet management per se, right, we did a lot of other stuff, right? One of the reasons why I always tell most of the people I meet, there are multiple ways to make money and survive. The funding is not the only aspect which kind of decides the fate of a startup, right? And we are one of the biggest examples of that, right? So up until 2022, we never took any funding. Whatever money we took was some kind of a loan, or we did a lot of stuff that what today's newest startups call as non-relevant. Right? I remember coming to Delhi, building a software or a mobile app for some customer here, selling it for 5 lakhs and going home, right, and paying that month's salary.
you
That's
kind
how-
of need to figure out a way to survive in the
Yeah,
beginning. So
yeah.
I have coded stuff onto the platform. We've done service projects just so that we could get by in a certain month during the initial days of the company.
But was it deliberate that you didn't want to take a funding and
No.
like you said that there are multiple ways of sustaining or growing without taking a funding. You can just elaborate on that. Why? I mean, if the answer is no, was it by default or it was by design?
No, see, you can, it's a yes and a no, right? It's a hard no than a yes. I'll tell you why. It was not that we didn't need money. It was not that we never approached anyone for money. There is some kind of a bias in the country, whether we like it or not, right? People, I mean, it's not wrong as well to have some kind of a bias. When you look at someone who wants to put a money on an individual or on a company, they need some aspects which kind of give them that confidence saying, okay, this is the right bet. All right. Let's say that could be an IITian. Unfortunately, none of us were. It could be ex-Google, ex-Microsoft, ex-Amazon or something like that. None of us were. Akamai was there, but I had spent a very small amount of time in Akamai. And unfortunately, even though Akamai probably does the most deep tech stuff in the world, but no one really knows about Akamai unless you're one of the vendors or the customers of that company, right? So that bias was definitely against us, right? We did not have any previous entrepreneurial experience, right? We were not IITians. Our product or a service was not something which was solving for 1.5 billion Indians.
So just to ask you, which year was this? Because obviously the things have changed over the period of time.
Over a period of time, a lot of things have changed, but this was 2018, 19, 20.
2018 May is when we started the company, and that's when we kind of started looking. Funding, we were always kind of looking for funding parallelly while we were also meeting our monthly goals in terms of survival and so on that we were looking
The critical part, even when, the probably first 8-9 months we never looked for funding, right? Because iTriangle was there and they were loaning us the money to survive. And our payroll, I remember, was 2 lakh rupees or 3 lakh rupees a month. That we were able to comfortably, kind of take care. But after that, right, even just before COVID, we met a few of the investors, we met strategic companies. One, we did not have any of these so-called necessary stuff for funding very early on. But the second aspect was also that India as a country doesn't fund product ideas. That is true even today, at scale, right? Let's say if 10 founders go and meet VCs, maybe one of them will get the funding if it's a product idea, if it's a software product idea.
Okay.
Indian VCs like to fund large scale operational ideas where there is enough tech, no doubt. I'm not saying there is no tech in them, but it's usually to do with an operational idea where you're solving for 1.4 billion people, right? Unfortunately, we were saying this will be a product that will shape like this, it will do data analytics, it will do this, it will do that, which were, the first question was, why can't your competitors or your customers do it themselves?
Right.
Right. So there was that bias, and rather than being bogged down by that, we found ways to survive. That is what we are saying, right? So you should always find a way to survive, no matter what you're doing, as long as it's in the framework of what we call as legal in the country. You should be more than happy to get your hands dirty, do something that will ensure you survive irrespective of, investors' money.
See, that's interesting. And coming back and relating it to, so when you started, you already had a product through the gates of iTriangle, or something that you had to build up from the scratch?
So there was like a fleet management solution.
Right.
So when iTriangle because iTriangle was in this domain, and when iTriangle showed interest in working with us, so they had a software as a fleet management solution. So we kind of picked that up. And what we did, and I think the core for all of us is technology, like starting from the founding team and even some of the initial guys who joined us, right? So we are very bullish on technology and what it could really do. And when we mean technology, it's the underlying, the hardcore stuff, right? Like the Kafka, the messaging queue, and so on. So we looked at fleet management, and it is more of a solution, as Anup said, which fleet owners use to see where the vehicle is and so on.
But there was no IP.
Yeah, so in a way, it is like it's the solution which is already out there, and let's try and see what's
getting stitched by multiple products.
Yes.
Lekin, as you said, there was no core product
yes.
that you could boast of that this is the product made in India.
Yes.
Yeah.
Something like, in Thar it is there, made in India with pride.
Yeah.
So you could not say like that.
Yeah.
For example.
See, the fleet management service, right? It's essentially a service that you're offering a fleet owner through bunch of dashboards, right? You can look at that as a product, no doubt about it, right? Because there is some value that it drives. But that is a placement of a product which is not a must-have for every car or every vehicle.
Right.
That's more of an optional service that, people choose to use it. Right. And one of the good things about the team that we had assembled, we always saw something in the future. We said, would fleet management be the most important buzzword going, let's say, into 2020s? Probably if the answer was yes, we would have continued to build it mostly.
Yeah.
All right. But if the answer, I mean, we couldn't definitely say no, but if the answer was doubtful, then we always looked at within that space, what else can we do which could add more value, which could have a larger impact.
So
That's how it began.
you spoke about value, and that's where I want to ask you now. When you started Zeliot, or with the passage of time, when you built your product, what is the value that you are delivering or your product is delivering to an aam aadmi or a consumer or a man on the road like me, or to an enterprise? How it is going to change the behavior of anybody driving on the road or the industry overall? You can just share a bit on that.
When we talk of the technology, so fleet management solution is what you see, right? That is what a person sees of where the vehicle is and so on. But if you kind of break down the layers, underneath all of this, there are actual data analytics engines which are running, which are getting data from all of these vehicles all over the country across different geographies in real time and making sense of this data in real time, right? So once you actually are able to do that at scale, you get in the data, transform it, make sense out of that data, and then the outcome of that is the dashboard or the fleet management solution that you actually see, right? So our core interest was in that data analytics layer, which sits under the hood in a way, and kind of looking at how that data is actually going to be used over a period of time, right? So the value that we bring there is when you look at a large enterprise today who deals with a bunch of vehicle data. It could be vehicle manufacturers, it could be large fleet owners who have thousands of vehicles on the fleet, on the road, right? So you are looking at ways to get in all of the data from these vehicles in real time and then make sense of that data in real time as well. Because you can't say, I mean, if there's an issue with the vehicle, you want to know about it right now. You can't wait for, say, an hour. You can't store the data and then make sense of the data over a period of time. So the real interest for us was in ensuring or enabling enterprises with tools to help them make these decisions on the data that they are getting in from the vehicles in real time.
Okay.
That's the fundamental idea behind the technology that we kind of started building out.
So simply put it, your tool or product is analyzing and capturing data coming from the vehicles on the road, and say a typical use case or typical application could be that, what is the health of the vehicle,
Yep.
right? Whether the brakes are going to fail or not.
Yes. Think of the dealer who's going to service a vehicle, right? So even he needs an analysis of what has gone wrong. For example, when the vehicle comes by, because it's an ecosystem play with the data that you get in. The customer is benefited for sure. So you as Manas, if you're driving, you get the benefit. The OEM service teams also kind of need to know that, all right, this is what is wrong with the vehicle in real time, and how could they actually plan or strategize in servicing that vehicle within a short amount of time. So those are the use cases that we could drive from something
So your
like this.
target customers typically are the vehicle manufacturers.
See,
Or
vehicle
the fleet
manufacturers.
owners.
Yeah. See, when you look at the application of the platform like what we have built, the first major application, while we made it more famous for ourselves, is OEMs. All right. And everyone told us that that's the biggest or the most difficult kind of an enterprise to get into. All right, because of the thought processes, it could be because of how frugal the Indian OEMs think. All right, I mean, kudos to them. They have been able to make a hell lot of a business mainly because they are very frugal at the core. Right, whether it could be with a supplier, whether it could be with the manufacturing, whether it could be internal. You don't see a fancy building of, let's say, a large scale OEM compared to, let's say, what a Google or a Microsoft would build, right? That kind of talks about the way they have built their businesses over a generation together, right? So getting into those kind of companies and selling your product at a right value, right, is one of the most challenging things. And yeah.
But what is a unique selling point? I mean, in
Yes.
the sense, data analytics, there are n number of products today.
There are hundreds of
Right?
companies.
What is that's something so exciting for the customer to think about Zeliot?
Yes. So what happens is this is where the product gets a little technical, right? Now, You look at a perspective OEM, right? Let's say you take any example, XYZ. What would they want to achieve? They would want to enable their customers get a connected vehicle. It starts from there, right? The intent for a OEM is to offer connected
Sorry,
vehicles.
Anup, but just for the benefit, what is a
Yeah.
connected vehicle?
Yeah. So connected vehicle is something that gives data back to the owner in real time. That what that means, it's
Okay.
like your smartphone,
All right.
right? That means it's always connected. You look at the older generation of vehicles, none of them are connected to internet. So the moment you are out of the vehicle, you have no information about what's happening with the vehicle.
All right.
But you take a connected vehicle, for example, any point of time, the vehicle is always connected to the cloud, that is the internet.
So that you mean to say, for example, in my vehicle app, the fact that I can see whether the doors are locked or unlocked, or
And also go ahead and unlock them if they're locked. I mean,
Yeah,
remotely,
exactly.
right?
Or
Stuff
turn
like
the
that.
what's the
AC
tire
on.
pressure, what's the AC on?
Yeah, yeah.
That's a classic example of a connected
That's a
vehicle.
very classic example of connected vehicle.
Okay.
Now, the impact that a connected vehicle can have, now compare this to a commercial vehicle, right? B2C, as in the passenger vehicles, have certain amount of impact because ultimately it's most of the times it's the driver who's the owner of the vehicle.
True.
All right, I drive my own vehicle.
Yep.
You probably drive your own vehicle, right? Or maximum you would have a chauffeur who you would know, right? So the requirement for you to own a connected vehicle is slightly less, even though the things are drastically
Yeah, it's a good
changing.
to have thing.
It's good to
It's
have
a good to
the-
have.
It is
right?
not a deal breaker.
Yeah, it's not a deal breaker.
And the utility is less. It's because it's more of, I can do this, right? And
Good you
don't
mentioned that, because I was actually going to ask you that. Though
Yeah.
I have the app, but I don't even check it. I mean, how does it?
I don't think I've renewed mine, if that is the case.
Yeah.
That is because it's B2C segment, right?
Now
Correct.
compare that
Yeah.
to a commercial vehicle.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Let's take a Volvo Eicher truck. Let's take a Tata Motors truck. Very rare that the owner of a truck would be driving the truck, right? And the kind of workload that the trucks put in, month on month, week out of week, right? You look at, we have the data that says an average truck, right, in India runs at least about 6 to 8 hours every day. And trucks run for 10 years easily, right? With the Delhi now putting curbs
You
on.
have to scrap it after 10
Yeah,
years,
scrap it
for
off. The
sure.
diesel trucks have to be scrapped
Yeah.
after 10 years. Still, they run consistently for 10 years. So imagine the kind of workload that trucks do. The owner would love to understand what's the health of that truck, where that particular truck is, consistently, right? I mean,
And
in
also,
real
I
time.
think how it's being driven, because there is another big difference between passenger vehicles and commercial vehicles. Passenger vehicles, you get the same amount of mileage pretty much, right? But with commercial, there's loading, it can drive with a lot of weight and it can drive without weight. There's a certain gear you're supposed to drive on for it to give you the best efficiency. And all these are cost levers to the fleet owner ultimately.
So
right?
that's the relevance or importance of a
Of a
connected vehicle.
Connected
Yes,
vehicle.
exactly.
Coming back to the point, that so this is connected vehicle, great for
Yeah.
explaining, but what stands out as far as your product is concerned?
Yeah,
Coming
that's
back
where
to
we
this,
were
yeah.
coming,
yes.
right? So now let's say, look at the persona of a customer, right? So when they think and they decide that we need a connected vehicle as part of our offering, right? What's the first thing that they look at? They need to connect their vehicle, which is not connected, to the internet. And how do you do that? You do that through what we call as a telematics device. It's like a telematics control unit.
So okay, fine. We understood what you mentioned about what is a connected vehicle platform, why it is important to a OEM, why it is important, or the manufacturer, and perhaps why it is important to somebody who's driving it also. Yeah, use case we get it, but again, what is a differentiator? This coming from Zeliot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's so specific? And you also spoke about earlier, VC is not promoting product. So how do you marry these two thoughts and bring it the value to the
Right.
customer?
Yeah. See, one very, very interesting thing, right? One of the things why we went down the OE route, when we were building the fleet management systems, we were always wondering where the scale will come from. Who is that guy wherein I crack that business once and we get, let's say, 100,000 vehicles, 50,000 vehicles? Is
Right.
there a fleet owner like that? Then there was a thought in unison. We said, no, the actual largest fleet owners are the OEMs,
Absolutely.
right? Because they have started making their vehicles connected and they take responsibility for managing the vehicle for 2 years at least, 3 years at least.
Okay.
It comes as part of your vehicle cost.
The warranty you're saying?
Not the warranty, the connected features.
The
Okay.
connected features
Right,
are
let's say-
packaged with the vehicle sale. So you buy a vehicle today, you get 2 years worth of subscription along with that.
Right.
That means
Okay.
it's
Okay.
added,
Yeah.
it's embedded into your
Yeah.
vehicle cost. The same story holds true for commercial vehicles as well. When you buy a truck for, let's say, 30 lakh rupees, it comes with 2 years of connected services put together. Third year, it's an option for you. You want to renew, you don't want to renew. All right. So we said, okay, for at least 2 years, these guys are making what, 5, 7, 13, 15,000, depending on who that is. And all of these vehicles per month are adding to their kitty of the vehicle that they have to maintain. So the largest fleet owners in the country are actually the OEMs.
And that's how you started approaching the OEMs.
That's how in 2019, 2020, the idea of talking to OEMs to understand if a fleet management system makes sense for them started.
Okay.
Yeah, and also I think the timing was right for us because that is the time when OEMs were planning to put the connected features right from the production line. Right, so instead of having this technology sold later on, once the the vehicle is purchased, you have this connected from the time the vehicle is manufactured, and that is where the adoption came from.
Yeah, and every OEM, whether it is two-wheeler or four-wheeler or commercial, were putting a strategy in their boardrooms of making 100% of their fleets connected because they saw value. Right, they saw value of the data that is coming in. So we thought that's a right opportunity for us. But the first step was we took what was available with us, the fleet management system, to OEMs. That is where our unique value started coming in. They said, I don't want a fleet management system because I already have mine or I'm on the process of building one. Then we said, okay, if they don't want fleet management, what do they want? That's when we went a layer below in our technical stack, right? Again, the tech stack. That's where we found all of these OEMs do not mind buying a platform to manage the data, but they want to control the narrative of how the fleet management is done. All right. So I'll give you a very layman example for that. You buy a BMW or a Mercedes. It might be a same data engine powering both the apps, but what BMW and Mercedes want to kind of control is how the user experience is given to the customer ultimately.
Okay, so as a customer of a BMW and Mercedes, what I see on the front end is something that they want to control.
Yes.
But behind that, what is going and what technology is making that happen, that is something they're okay to...
They're okay to buy from companies. Right? Whether it is Zeliot, whether it is, any product, rather, Confluent or Google platform. Think like this. BMW and Mercedes, both of them could be using the same GCP services, same AWS services. Doesn't matter, right? So we said, okay, what is a service that we could build which would make sense to OEMs? That is where our new solution or a new product, Condense, was born. All right. We named it as Condense because it's a product that can condense the data coming from millions of different vehicles into one single stream of real-time data.
Okay.
That's how the name Condense also came about. All right. So we said we don't want to sell fleet management to the OEMs. Let us sell the platform which they could be open to consume.
So what was the problem that you were solving with this?
The problem that we were solving was
the
we
niche
said
problem or the problem.
it was a niche segment, right? So it was not a very straightforward problem for which we had a solution to. The moment we started working, I remember I was in Chennai every Monday. Every week, every Monday I was in Chennai meeting one or two OEMs. Right? We were trying to pitch anything and everything under the sun to get their attention. Right? That's how it began in 2019, 2020s. So critically, very, very clearly what came out, can you build us a product which could kind of ingest the data coming from everywhere else, all the vehicles, get the data into one single system, do some basic analysis on that and give us a easy to consume data output. Imagine a funnel, right? Funnel is large, right? And it goes on condensing as you go down the pipeline. So you be the funnel, get all the data from lakhs of my vehicles that are on road, do some analysis. It's like you're filtering.
Right.
Yeah.
Do some filtering at each layer and give me a clean data that I can consume. This evidently came out as a requirement because even now there aren't mobility specific platforms like this.
But were there not already platforms and solutions which are
That
doing
is where
this?
that's where the importance comes for our kind of a platform, right? Because we built it by understanding of what is necessary for OEMs, we made it much more efficient in terms of cloud consumption, in terms of the amount of manpower they need to put to create those things, right? So we coined a term called as verticalized platforms.
So which essentially means very specific to the auto
Industry.
sector.
To that particular industry.
That's
Right.
when you started, right?
Yes. So they asked us the same question. They said, can't I use a product from GCP, a service from GCP or a AWS? We said, yeah, you can very well. Then the next question was, what amount of work do I need to do on top of it to take it to the level that, let's say, condenses? We said, maybe GCP's some service will take you 50% to where you are. उसके ऊपर you need to add all the data filtering, the canned data filtering, all of that understanding has to come from you.
A lot of the logic that goes behind the scenes of what this the platform by default, the generic ones don't understand vehicle data fundamentally.
So are we saying that
Yeah,
just on a very very pompous note,
yeah.
that you guys are going to be competing with the big cloud service providers as far as the platform is concerned? I mean, it's pretty enterprising, but then is that your competition in terms of pure play product?
Yes and a no, right?
It's a mixed bag.
Why is it a yes? Because, I mean, can't deny the fact that OEM can take that route, or any customer for that matter can take a route of going native with 100% with a cloud service company, and they will achieve their final goal. All right. It's a no, because there is no parallel product which can do everything that our platform does.
For that industry, at least, per se, right? Straight
For
up.
that industry,
Okay,
for
so you're the
that
most
service.
integrated product as far as solving that problem of data assimilation for the vehicle manufacturers is concerned, right?
Yes.
And
Then-
that's primarily because you learned it from your customers that what needs to be solved, rather than making a very, very, if I may say, broader product,
Yeah.
which can plug and play into different industries. You are very specific to a particular industry.
Yes, that's how it started. All right. So that is what differentiated us. Right. I'm sorry, there is no very laymanish term of talking about the differentiation here. Right. Because it's not a product that you can look, feel, and then say.
So if I have to understand your product or differentiator, it's basically focusing on a niche and doing one thing very, very perfectly. Simply speaking, I as a person like to drink tea from a place which makes only tea, because I know this is a core competence and this is something he's going to do really, really well. The customer service would be superb. If I want the tea without sugar, it will be done. So that agility is also there, right? It is not plethora of services or products. It's very, very focused approach. Is that what Condense brings in, or that was a thought that you had while building it for, say, automotive sector?
That's the verticalization angle that we brought. So verticalized for mobility as an industry. So we very specific, solve very specific problem for that industry and do it the best in the best way.
I like your example, the tea example, right? That perfectly sums up. I would rather have tea by paying 10 rupees on the way to airport on the side, rather than get into a large chain and then have a 500 rupee coffee, for example, right? I know that this 10 rupee tea is going to have some specific difference when compared to a restaurant, a large chain restaurant. So it kind of sums up what our product is. It's a platform at the end of the day. It does, let's say, 6 things the same like any other platform. Analyzes the data, helps you scale the data, and all of that stuff. Adds that 2-3 layers which are very specific to a particular industry. If it's a mobility, then we bring out a lot of aspects that are directly relevant to an OEM, so that they don't have to spend a lot of time on the platform to adapt it to them.
So the speed to market is higher.
The go-to market, right? It's much faster go-to market. We have gone live with an OEM within 6 months. Right? Unheard.
So we've been able to migrate close to 150,000 vehicles that were out on the field, bring that onto our platform and enable them with the solution within 6 to 8 months. And that is not possible if you have a very generic platform which needs a lot of adaptability to a certain use case.
So what is in that case, just help me understand what is the return on investment cycle, for an OEM, because ultimately a manufacturer, while technology is good and great, they would want some business benefit out of it.
Yes.
if business benefit is a reason for them to go for it, or there is some other reason why they want to adopt to these technologies?
That's a very perfect question. I'll tell you why. If you look at the landscape of OEMs today, their story ends the moment the vehicle goes to dealership. You take any OEM.
They
Right.
don't know after that what is happening with
They
the
don't
vehicle.
know.
True.
They can't control. Right?
Absolutely.
Whether the guy will come back to the service for the the company owned service centers or the dealership owned service centers, you don't know. I mean, you can't even control that narrative. Connected vehicles is giving them an opportunity to be part of the life cycle of the vehicle. It could be for 7 years, 10 years, 5 years, no matter what. Right? So that's a big investment from their perspective, but they are aiming big returns. You look at a lot of these research reports coming in from these giant analytical companies, all of them say the vehicle manufacturers are going to make a lot more profit by data, right, rather than selling the vehicle over a period of time. That kind of pushes them for the investment.
And obviously, for the sake of discussion, we're talking more about the commercial fleets.
Commercial
right now, or the
fleets.
fleet.
Yeah.
I mean, this could change for passenger cars as well going forward, but currently it's very, very relevant
Relevant
for
to
the
com-
commercial vehicles.
So there's a stat that generally a lot of these commercial vehicle manufacturers talk about. So when you look at the total spend a fleet owner does on the vehicle, about 15% of that spend is what comes to the OEM. All right.
Okay.
And the rest of it is all outside of the OEM's ecosystem.
Mhm.
So he could be spending on fuel,
So that's a
obviously, which
market.
is a big, yeah. And what OEMs are trying to do is trying to get more of that spend towards them. And the way to do that is connect your vehicle, get the data in, and that enables you to unlock and upsell a lot of services to these fleet owners. So one example on the driving data that I was talking about before. So the moment you are able to analyze the way the vehicle is being driven and so on, you could launch driver coaching as a service. You start coaching the drivers as an OEM and training them on to what are the best practices to drive a vehicle, right? How should you be changing your gears? How should you load the vehicle? Those are the services that you're able to unlock, and that unlocks a revenue channel for the OEM which didn't exist before.
And with the product margins typically in manufacturing industry, always a challenge to maintain or to increase, services and such areas could be good revenue streams coming in for them.
Going forward, yes. And this is, let's say, step 0 of that. Making your vehicle connected is a step 0, right? And the horizons of return on investment for them is not just 1 to 2 years.
Mhm.
They are thinking big. They are thinking long term.
So when you go and meet an OEM or a manufacturer, what is the business case that you tell them or you propose them or they are looking at? What is the kind of return on investment time period they're looking at? Is it like 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year? What's the inflection point?
See, we usually talk 3 years.
Okay,
We don't want to talk 7, 10 years, right? Lot of CIOs will not be happy with that.
absolutely.
3 years is kind of a right frame of period, right? Wherein they can look at, okay, 3 years is not too far, but it gives them adequate amount of time to plan their monetization strategy.
So that means in 3 years, be rest assured that whatever you have reached your break even, and from there on, you're only generating revenues.
If you do it
incremental
well,
revenues.
if you execute well, because we as a vendor, right, as a supplier of these software products, we can only do so much. I mean, there are a lot of other aspects of this ecosystem that the OEM themselves control, or there are multiple other vendors. But we give them a picture, right, saying, okay, now we do this, which is, let's say, your level 0. Here on, these are the 5 steps that you could take, right, as part of your organization, which will let you kind of get a return on investment in 3 years.
So we give you the tools to kind of help you analyze and launch a lot of these services, but those services still need to be executed a certain way on the field, right? And that is something that the OEM does best.
But data analytics is not very specific to automotive sector.
Yeah.
So, and you are focused only on the automotive sector. Your product is only for the automotive sector. Correct me if I'm wrong. Aren't you limiting your market in that sense, or you have plans, going forward that you want to share?
Makes sense in every industry. But the concept that we want to bring into this industry or in to the data analytics piece is the verticalization aspect, which we believe is a far bigger game than what people have anticipated.
Okay. Can you
Delivering-
elaborate more on that? When you say you want
Yeah.
to bring in the verticalization, it's because
So
on
what
one
that-
side you're talking about the product being applicable or usable to any kind of an industry, But when you're talking about verticalization, if you can elaborate.
Right. So I think one is, if you look at it as a filter, the whole data being going through a filter and the end result being, the analyzed data that makes sense. Think of it like having a version of this product with different filters, which makes sense for a different industry. All right. So for now, I have the funnel is already there.
You just need to rip and replace.
I have the filters which
you need to
make
change.
sense for mobility today. All right. So what we do is we go ahead to a different industry. The same funnel comes along, and that is something I'm able to replace. But the filters are going to be different. So one very relatable example for that is the financial industry, for example. So there's a lot of transactions that happen, and you can think of each of these transactions as data that is coming in. Now I want to do fraud analysis in real time, hypothetically, right? I want to understand if this transaction is going through is a fraud or not. So that's a filter. I mean, metaphorically, right? You could think of it like that. So once I have that filter in place, now I have this verticalized. My platform is now verticalized for a different industry. So it's about bringing those filters in and adapting it to every different industry. That is how you could look at it, and that is the strategy that we are going with.
There are some use cases wherein data can be analyzed, let's say 8 hours later or even 15 days later. But there are a lot of use cases which were not existing until now, which are unlocked today because of platform like Condense, wherein you can ensure that the vehicle stops right there within just, let's say, 30 seconds after something has gone wrong. Let's say there is an oil leakage in the vehicle. Very common use case, right? You hit a bump, the brake fluid starts leaking. The models that can be run on Condense have a way to determine that within 30 seconds of this happening.
Oh, so that means the brake fuel has started dripping, and
brake
within
fluid,
30 seconds, the manufacturer will
will know
that there is a problem with the brake.
Yes, and something needs to be done about it.
Yeah, and they can call up the driver.
Yeah.
We could automate that entire process tomorrow, right?
So though it may be a product very much relevant for the manufacturers, but it is bringing a good amount of good to the society because you're saving potential road accidents.
And we are then creating an ecosystem around this, right? You need an RSA service to reach the vehicle within 30 minutes, right? You need a service center nearby who can, let's say, replace your brake fluid tank with a new one. All right. So there is a lot of, this is what we call OEMs being part of life cycle of the vehicle, even beyond the vehicle being sold to a dealer. That is one of the biggest potentials of platform like this going forward.
Great. So you have a product which is made in India with pride.
Yeah.
Taking a tagline from the Mahindras.
Yeah.
Right. But again, they are automotive, so it's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
And then it's a niche product. You're competing with the likes of the big cloud service providers, if I may say so. So that must be bringing a lot of pride. Now, just coming to that, are you focusing only on India market, or is it you have plans to go overseas?
So it's very simple for us, right? It will be a multi-domain product, not just the mobility specific, because as Sudeep rightly mentioned, it's just about replacing filters, right? Can I bring in enough filters for relevant to each different industries? It could be travel and hospitality, IoT, industrial IoT, for example, healthcare, BFSI, banking, financial services and insurance. Can I bring in those filters quickly? That's one. Can I now sell this across the globe? Because real-time data doesn't stop in India, right? There are much more mature markets and there are many more upcoming markets. So our target is going to be more global, and again, right, fortunately, not all the time cloud service companies are competition to us. In fact, in lot of cases, we go through cloud service companies in trying to make that sale.
So it's a nice love-hate relationship.
It's a nice love-hate relationship. So what we tell them is, you can take a bigger pie, but my product has to be part of this bigger pie.
Okay.
All right. So maybe, just maybe, one or two products or services that these cloud companies have, we are, yes, competing against them. But you look at a larger picture, we are more of a partner. We bring in a customer to them, they bring customer to us. Together we sell something. We together sell an entire product line. Yeah. Starting from the cloud, then lot of services on top of it, then Condense. All right. Then you even get these large system integrators like Infosys, L&T Technology Services, and these guys who ultimately build the user experience for them.
So it's an ecosystem.
So just for everyone's consumption, if it's okay with you, can you share some of your biggest customers, and also what exactly use cases you're solving for them, how it has benefited them?
So one of our largest customers today is Volvo Eicher commercial vehicles in India. And we've currently managing about 150,000 vehicles for them on our platform, on our technology. One of the big problems that we're solving for them is today, and I think this is the example that we've spoken of, when it comes to the data coming in from these vehicles, there is a category that we needed to define for Volvo Eicher, wherein they could say, the vehicle needs to stop right now. And how do you go about doing that? So our platform solved or unlocked that category for them, which helps them, predict where the vehicle is going to fail, what needs to be done if the vehicle fails, and so on. So a complete uptime center that they have is the data for that is something that our platform provides. Barring that, we also have TVS Motors as our customer in the two-wheeler segment, wherein the electric vehicles that they're coming out with, that is a clear value add. It unlocks a revenue pool, and the ROI comes over a period of time when you execute services onto the field. That is the idea.
Sure. Now let's move a bit from the technology to the basic entrepreneurial journey that you have had, and let's marry the two. Now, obviously, you have a product and you have a market, but as a completely bootstrap, because you're talking about big names, you're talking about market leaders, right? Who let you inside the gates of these organizations? I mean, was it that you dovetailed somebody, or a big partner, or there was a big investor, which I don't know if was there in your case, or somebody has invested, or was it some relative over there that allowed you to come in and do the selling? Because typically enterprises would look for
The backing.
They would look for and something which is critical to their future revenue streams, right? So how did you solve this? How did you get to the first deal?
I can quickly answer. There is no relative there.
Okay, thanks.
Absolutely no relative there.
That'd be easy if you had relatives.
Yeah,
You would find relatives everywhere, But
You both are also not related.
we are not
Anup
related.
Naik, Sudeep Nayak.
No, we're not.
We are not related. He's a pure non-vegetarian. I'm a pure vegetarian. So huge gap there.
Okay.
Right. But coming back, see, the first 4 years of the company's journey, right? So 2018 May till March 2022 was completely bootstrapped. Like we earlier spoke about, it was built with lot of chaotic decisions, lot of chaotic development. You can say the vision was there. The vision was to sell to OEMs. The vision was to create a platform. How we executed that was a lot more chaotic. It's not a rosy picture, right? So as we said, we built anything and everything necessary to kind of survive. And you have to remember there was COVID in between, where auto industry faced, especially the fleet management industry.
There were no cars on the roads. I mean,
there was no vehicles on the roads.
No vehicles.
Right?
Yeah.
So 100% down, right? So there was a period of 6-8 months where we went without any revenue. Right? And we had to do anything and everything under the sun to survive. But beyond that, we were very fortunate to be recognized by Bosch. They're a huge dominant player, and we were very fortunate to have worked with them from very beginning of the company. We were doing different stuff for them. We were mostly involved in services with them. That's what I keep telling, right? Services is seen as a, let's say, non-tech, non-sexy business, which is not actually. I mean, that kind of lays foundation for lot of things that are usually kind of disregarded. Right? We were involved with Bosch doing some services. That's how they understood us. Yeah. Right? So that's how they know us. Then when we started talking, I remember a particular meeting, there was leadership of Bosch India involved. We went there, I along with a couple of my other partners, and I explained them a very rough idea of what condenses on the board. I said, this is what the product is. This is how it would look. And this is what it would solve.
That time the product was not ready?
We had not even started building it.
Okay.
Right? We were ideating it, I think, over a period of time, because this has been a product which has been in the works for a really long time. We were bootstrapped fundamentally. That's also a reason, and because we had to do something for the survival while we were ideating this. And this is something that we told them, we had a relationship with them thanks to some services that we'd done for Bosch previously. So we at least got the opportunity to talk to them about it.
We just wrote it on this. They said, if you want to build this, we will fund you.
So you mean to say that on one side there was sustenance problem, but you had a great idea and no product.
Yeah,
but you had a clarity of vision and you presented it on a board, and with
to one of the largest companies in the world, and probably the largest when it comes to automotive.
Absolutely. So, and they decided to invest with no product in hand.
But the journey was not as smooth. It took 1 year from that meeting, but yes, they eventually ended up investing. And in March 2022, we took a very small check, right, from them, which kind of helped us accelerate this product. While I can't tell you the amount of money we took, but the public information is they own about 14% of our company.
All right.
All right. Yeah. So from then on, it's been a very jolly ride, right?
Because you went to everybody saying that Bosch has invested in us, right?
One of the very interesting aspects is there is a agreement, there's a contract where Bosch will not take us to OEMs.
Okay.
Right? Even though they are very dominant in OEMs, what they say is you can use our names.
All right.
Right? But we will not endorse you. Now that's a sense of clarity Bosch kind of companies come in with. They are very clear as to what they can do with you, what they can't. All right? So we are more than happy. We have been immensely benefited by the partnership that we have had with Bosch, and it has helped us in our journey so far, right? So all of these OEMs, when they look at us, they say, okay, there is a large company that's backing, even though, I mean, they don't know the specifics of how that is done and all of that stuff. But like you said, they know that there is a large player in the shadows assisting them in kind of delivering a great service.
And I think for a domain like this, and especially the mobility domain that we were in, having Bosch as a strategic investor really helped us understand the psyche of a lot of how the OEM thinks. What can we do within the product itself, the nitty-gritties of the product that will make it more suitable for something like an OEM. So the strategic value that Bosch adds is immense, especially for this market and the kind of customers that we were able to onboard over a period of time.
And one great thing for early stage startups, unfortunate thing is Bosch doesn't make a lot of investments, right? So they pick and choose few companies that they want to invest and be strategically involved, because they don't invest just for financial gain.
True.
While finances are part of any deal, right? That's standard, but they invest to be more strategically aligned with you. Right? They invest if they feel that they can spend some time with you. All right. So we have been fortunate where there is no sword hanging on our heads saying, okay, you need to do this amount of revenue in this amount of time and give an exit worth, let's say, this X. There's no such thing, right? So it's more of a free flow research. It's a free flow R&D that keeps happening on a daily basis. That's what one of the biggest benefits that we have driven out of.
So way of thinking of the cultures kind of align,
It's very aligned, right? So build a company for the long term, build a product which can serve customers over a period of time, right? I mean, good or bad, right? So a lot of entrepreneurs today feel build fast, fail fast, move on. Yeah. While, I mean, I don't deny that's also one of the strategies. We have employed a strategy otherwise.
I want to ask a very fundamental question. How long did it take you to get the first meeting, and how long did it take you to get your first order with your customer?
So the first order was
and do they really care beyond a certain point that whom you have been backed by?
No. Actually, they don't care. It's the initial first few steps that you need, right? Which a large name helps you. It's funny. The first OE contract that we got was 2 years before Bosch came on board. Right. So the first contract was with Royal Enfield. It was in 2020, just before COVID, you can say, right? Early 2020. That was again a services revenue. All right. So
while we speaking on this, there are various aspects coming out. There's patience coming out. There's resilience, and there's also about culture. There's also about being frugal. If I have to ask you, that for a budding entrepreneur, right? What are the things that should be core they should go with? Because it doesn't sound as convenient or rosy the way it sounds on, the way it is presented in the media and the newspapers with the valuations. What is the life of an entrepreneur? What's your daily day, and your social pressures and your life?
See,
Deep, yeah. If you go ahead and then probably I'll add.
yeah, both of us will have a lot to say.
Yeah.
Right? People feel only women can have multiple moods a day. Absolutely wrong. You talk to any entrepreneur, they will have 4 to 5 moods in any given day. When they wake up, when they come to office, mid of the day, early evenings, late evenings, right? So a typical day involves an emotions that runs high, right? So I mean, first day in the morning you feel you can build the next big company in the world. By afternoon you would be like, will I survive this month? Then by evening you would be thinking there is some scope. Then by night again you say, no, I'm going to build the biggest company in the world, right? So it's a roller coaster ride in a daily.
You go through all the 4 seasons in one day.
In one day, right? Typical of a Bangalore weather, right? So it's bright and sunny in the morning and it starts raining in the evening. So
Especially, I think for us, when there is not a lot of VC backing or a lot of money, I think the month ends are extremely hard when you have to, make salary on time and so on.
It's a
Touch wood, we've done
been
that
able to, yeah.
well, and I think a lot of work that goes behind the scenes in making
but
that happen.
a budding entrepreneur does not look forward to the 30th of every month
Yes.
the way an
No.
employer.
we would love to sleep off that day,
Yes.
right? Those 3-4
Those are the
days.
days we were just employees,
30th was never there.
and you would just get the credit instead of the big debit that you have to do.
So, but that being said, it's a lot more fulfilling, right? At the end of the day, when you look at it, maybe 6 years have passed since we have been starting. This is the 7th year. We have been building Zeliot. We have gone through tremendous amount of things, right? It teaches you things which no business school can teach you, no individual can teach you, or no amount of individual work in any company can teach you, right? It kind of teaches you human values. It kind of teaches you life lessons like being frugal. Frugal doesn't come by choice, right? It's kind of a mandate. You have to be frugal, otherwise you won't survive. So, as per us, entrepreneurship is something which every individual has to get in their own way. Doesn't mean everyone has to get into a startup. Doesn't mean everyone has to bootstrap. In your own way, you have to you should try to be an entrepreneur, right? It could be creating content nowadays. I mean, that's a big deal that's going on, right? So you can still have a job, but you can still get into the entrepreneurship and try and understand the different nuances of it, right? So something which we encourage everyone to do, but most important, patience is the key, as per me. Everything else takes a backseat. Money, other things take a backseat. If you're patient, if you're confident about your idea and you're ready to back it no matter what, it will ultimately pay dividends, right? Unless you do grave mistakes along the way.
On the social aspect, sorry, you want to add something?
Yeah, sorry. What I was saying is, I think personally also, when your personal life takes a hit,
Yeah,
that
that
is
was a
not what I don't think you see that when you see or read a news article saying that, we've raised 10 million or we've raised at such and such valuation. There's a lot of aspect that I think your ecosystem needs to be aligned for you to also do what you do and put in that amount of time into something that you're doing, because it does take a backseat somewhere. You can't probably make that holiday that everyone else is doing, and you need to kind of cut back a little here and there because you're constrained for time. So it's also about having the right kind of people around you. There's the support from your friends, your social circle, so on. That plays a massive part, and that really pushes you to do this for the long term.
Then
So-
why all this pain?
Yeah, because as Anup said, it's fulfilling in a way, because when you have currently we are a team of 110 people. All right, we started off the 3 of us, and then we initially had a few people join us. So we've seen that journey go from having 6 people with us, and some of those people who joined us from the day one are still there. When we grow to a team of about 100, and we are continuing to evolve over a period of time. So when you kind of look back on that journey, you on a day-to-day see the same people come in, show up, and build with you towards a vision that you've kind of laid out. That is a really fulfilling kind of a feeling that you get over a period of time. Yes, of course, there are days when you are at your lowest, but the days when you actually say cracked a customer, or you have done something that is, or you probably ventured into a new industry or so on. So those days are extremely rewarding, And that is what kind of fuels the fire over a period of time.
But let me ask you one more question on this. So there's always a tendency, or it is said that there's a tendency for an entrepreneur, because your company is your baby and you don't want to let it go. You really want to give every last bit of sweat and blood to it. But on the other hand, that's your heart what is saying. On the other hand, the mind is always like, whether it's a good strategy to retreat or to unplug or to call it off and think something new and do it. What is a right way to evaluate that, whether I'm holding on irrationally or just emotionally, and it is fair to call it a day, or am I just enduring the present pain and I know the gain is around the corner?
Yeah. So
How do you evaluate that?
absolute right question. See, I will tell you, I mean, at least for us, it has been always true. Entrepreneurs will never be able to take that call. This is as per me. It's a very hard call which you'll never be able to take. No matter how experienced you are as a entrepreneur or an industry individual, you'll always find this to be the hardest part. Right? If you ask me in 2018, maybe 2018 we were really happy that we had started something. 2019, 2020, 2021, were there no days when we kind of doubted ourselves whether are we doing the right thing? Absolutely. Every day we had that doubt.
Especially COVID, I think
Especially
that period was
COVID,
like,
right? Terrible.
yeah.
So that is where having right advisors, right, in your close network who understand you personally, who understand what you're doing, who understands your family, it's very, very important, right? So can you look up to someone and put a very straightforward question and ask, am I doing the right thing? Am I wrong? Am I this? And if they are genuine with you and they have deep understanding about who you are, they tend to give you the right answer. Right? So, I mean, we have been blessed that we have had few of these guys who have been with us for a long time. Doesn't mean they are on your payroll or doesn't mean they are your consultants. They are your
Great
off
sounding
the
boards.
yes, right? So, because as entrepreneurs, we will never be able to take a call. If you ask me today, is this the day if someone comes and asks you or writes a check and says, give up, would I give up? My answer would be no. Right? If you ask me 10 years later, probably my answer would still be no. If you had asked me 3 years back, my answer would have been no. So, but it could be the right time. Who knows, right? So, these are the kind of aspects which individual entrepreneurs will find it very hard to take. You have to rely on your advisors. You have to actually wives. If you are married and you have a spouse, spouse are very intelligent in this, right? Because they know a lot about you personally, professionally, which probably none of the other, even your parents do not know about, right? So don't disregard your spouse, right? So try and understand from them, keep them updated.
No, I never dare to do that.
The same with us.
Yeah, it's like you have to kind of, those are your cues as to are you doing right or not. So those are kind of like your sounding boards of sorts to kind of get honest opinion about what you're doing. It's always important to kind of maintain a balance, but as you said, the attachment is just too strong to just let go. So you need somebody who takes a high level view of how things are and try and guide you along the way. And I think that we've been lucky to have that. But had we not had a lot of people that we have as partners, as friends and so on, it would have been a very difficult call or a journey, to be honest.
But all of this being said, my advice would be to have patience, think very objectively, think like a business guy, don't bring in emotions, right? So, do you strongly believe that there is some value? And is there a incremental feedback that you are getting? I'm against building 5 years in stealth and going to market the 6th year. No matter what your financial situation is, right? I'm against that concept. Are you building with the customer? Are you getting your feedbacks, let's say, every 3 months, every 4 months? Are you able to add customers? If that is continuing to happen, right, then the answer is you're on the right path. Whether you'll eventually scale to become a $50 billion company or a $1 billion company, I mean, nobody knows. But if you have cues like that, which we have always got, that is where I'm saying services is the most disregarded concept in Indian startup world, unfortunately. Selling to a customer is important as per me. If you're able to sell something. That's the reason, right? People, the MBA schools ask you to sell a pen. All right. You might eventually do, I mean, you might not eventually sell a pen when you get into the real world, but selling whatever you have and getting that customer's confidence every now and then is probably the most important thing. If that's happening, no matter who says what, have patience and continue.
So, to sum it as far as the two parts, I hear two things very clearly, and it reminds me of a line that I'd read it on a board. I think it was written by Ogilvy, and of Ogilvy and Mather, that customer is not a moron, he's your wife. So as you say, that know your customer well and listen to your spouse, the two sounding boards,
Yeah.
if they are resonating together, so I think that's a good way to, and of course with the extended ecosystem, I think more than any other metric, they're a good way to see that whether you're on the right track, and then it's an endurance game, right?
Then it's an endurance game. Absolutely. It's actually not a 100-meter sprint. Lot of lot of startups today feel you can, or you want to get to, let's say, 100 million valuation, 500 million valuation, or $1 billion valuation in 3 years, 4 years, 6 years. If you're not getting, that means you're not scaling your company. That's a very different or a wrong notion to start a company with. I mean, this is what we have been. You might not, there are a lot of companies, right? Akamai, for example. How many people in the world know Akamai? All right. They are one of the most impactful companies in the cloud as that of any other company. Right. So it's not about the valuation. It's not about PR or marketing. It's about adding relevance to customers day on day basis. And if that is happening, you're on the right track.
Great. So before we end, I have just last set of questions, and they will not be requiring you to think so much. But it's not a rapid fire. Okay.
You had us think really hard on a few of these last ones.
All right. So India is going through an exciting time. We're talking about there's internal combustion engines, there's EV, there's hybrid, there's flex fuel, and there's hydrogen. What's your bet on?
Personal, professional,
yeah.
it will differ.
Yeah.
I mean, you can
I'll
say
tell you
both.
why. I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
If you ask me right now, right, while I'm backing on EV ecosystem to really progress, if I have to put my 30 lakhs on, I would still probably buy a ICE engine, right? I mean,
That's on a personal front.
That's on a personal front. Professionally, if you ask me, it doesn't really matter for a product like ours, whether it's EV, whether it's an ICE, whether it's an hydrogen vehicle. Ultimately, our product works in a similar lines. My bet on, which is a contrasting view, I'm betting on hydrogen fuel for the long haul vehicles, whether it is commercial, whether it is long haul cars. All right. If it comes to intracity, pretty sure EV is the right way to go about it. All right. It's much easier to create a network within a city. It's much easier to charge back at your home every day, especially the two-wheelers. The biggest beneficiaries. I today don't know why people buy ICE two-wheeler. Right? I mean, I find it a little difficult to understand that aspect. As per me, two-wheelers, EV is clear-cut the best way to go about. When it comes to cars, I would love to believe hydrogen is the right way because it's a lot more easier on the environment, easier to maintain, easier to kind of build an infrastructure for.
I want hydrogen to win personally, just from an environmental aspect.
I was coming to that. That was my next question because
Yeah.
you mentioned environment, and that out of all these options, we talk about sustainability, we talk about green.
Yes.
What's your view on that?
Hydrogen is a true green.
Hydrogen
right?
is a true green. With EVs, it's called tailpipe emissions. There's a zero tailpipe emissions very conveniently, but you do burn coal to get electricity, and that is the major source of electricity at the end of the day. And there are huge debates around this as to, is it truly green? Are we better than ICE when you look at EV and so on? Of course, the pollution that happens on the roads is lesser, but I would say the true north would be hydrogen over a period of time. And I really want that to win. I mean, I don't know if it's going there or not, but there are some companies and big companies at that who are betting on hydrogen right now. So that's a positive sign for sure.
So my last question. Give me an advice, one for each, for the government, for the investors, and for the customers.
So very coincidentally, we were talking something today afternoon that's related, more related to government, not very related to our industry per se. If we were in power, in whatever aspect, right? I was thinking, I don't understand why our government is not looking at making the cities clean the top priority. See, I'm still okay traveling 400 kilometers in 6 hours rather than 4. If you ask me personally, right, it's a contrasting view. There might be a lot of people who might say you're wrong, but my perspective is I'm okay traveling 6 hours instead of 4 for a 400-kilometer journey if you make the air, the surroundings cleaner. So if I was in government in any of the power, I would allocate as much as possible towards making the cities more livable in the country. My Vande Bharats, my fancy, highways can wait. For me, it's about cleanliness. If you can make my or my kids for the future live in a more livable city, that would be my priority, right? But now coming back to, let's say, the ecosystem, the mobility or ecosystem, my advice is to invest more on the infra for the alternate fuels, right?
Like flex fuel or biomass and so on.
Biomass, because your EV journey is going to take time. Like Sudeep said, that still involves burning coal,
True.
right?
Yeah.
So flex fuels probably for
Short term.
the short term, let's say next 5 years,
Yeah.
especially for the trucks and the cars, is the right way to go. The impact hybrid is creating, even though is not as significant as an EV, it's still quite a bit. With the hybrid, you are getting your fuel economy at what? 24,
22,
25,
23
26
at least,
for an Innova,
Right.
which is usually in
single digit range.
single digits,
Yeah.
or let's say early double digits, right?
Okay.
So if you're able to double your fuel economy, that means you're consuming less fuel, right? So betting your this on flex fuels for short term is probably the right way to go about it, while working on the EV ecosystem in the back end,
Yeah.
right?
So you asked from the investors?
The
big
investor angle,
question,
I think you
right?
need to
Yeah.
cover that specifically.
Right. So see,
I'll come to you for the customers because
Yes.
you're in sales.
yes. See, I mean, I would love for investors to be a little non-biased, while I understand their perspective, right? Because you have no way to understand whether you should bet on this person or not. But bias probably is something that can reduce and is reducing over a period of time. So my other big advice to, I mean, not an advice, big maybe
Ask.
ask would be to
Yeah.
look at cloud-based products from this country, right? Do you have Confluent from India? Why can't, I mean, you have a lot of brilliant minds in the country. A lot of people are building those. Unfortunately, all of them are moving to California. One simple reason, because there is more funding in US than in India,
Right.
right?
Create that ecosystem.
So let entrepreneurs build that ecosystem of products which focuses on deep tech products for cloud. I mean, cloud is the easiest today, right, to understand. And these are the companies who are actually enabling the use cases for large enterprises. Why do you want all the cloud products to come from US?
Yeah, I think made in India for digital as well, right? That is digital technology. It's not just about creating core competent computers, digital technology that comes from India. Made in India should apply to that as well. It's not just about hardware stuff.
It's not
right?
just about manufacturing. Yeah.
Great. So you're asked from the customers.
So Indian customers, the first thing is whenever we kind of pitch this, there's a big discussion on build versus buy. That generally happens. And Indian customers always, there's a tendency to say that, we could build this in-house rather than buy this. I think that is a bit of a short-term view, if you ask me, in my opinion, because we've been perfecting this and this technology will get better over a period of time. So when it comes to the build versus buy argument, there should be a more long-termish view towards thinking how would me buying this really help the organization in the long term. And that is something that we don't see often. It's about, yes, of course, if you build it in the short term, you might feel you're saving more money, but that's not necessarily true over a long period of time, especially with a product like ours, because we spoke of a 3-year ROI, a 5-year ROI, right? So you need to really have that mindset when you're kind of buying this product. So
visionary mindsets is what you asked for, right?
When you're making a buy decision for a product like this, yes.
Great. Sudeep and Anup, thanks a lot. It's been wonderful speaking with you guys because we covered about your company, your product, your startup journey, about what do you expect from the customers, what do you expect from the ecosystem, and what do you expect from the government. So sharing this complete insight and your journey has been really, really enriching for me. Thanks a lot for taking out this time and being here.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, Manas. Thank you for having us. This has been great.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you. So friends, that was journey of two entrepreneurs, Anup and Sudeep from Zeliot. They shared about their journey coming from Hubli and how they built up a company from scratch, how they attracted investments from the likes of Bosch, how they're building a product which is entirely conceived and built in India and competing with the global leaders in that domain. They also shared about what they expect from the ecosystem. I hope that the relevant stakeholders listen to this and they also take the necessary action what is required for budding startups like them to prosper and make India prosper. Thank you very much.